Oumou is a multi-hyphenate, polycreative therapist, coach, entrepreneur, disruptor, writer, speaker, consultant, and facilitator of spaces for radical learning. Oumou is a two-time graduate of Syracuse University and former adjunct professor of the same school. She is also the creator of Radical Mental Health First Aid, which is the most incredible course ever. A workshop that is slowly but surely changing the care and mental health landscape. I agree. In her work, she incorporates different modes of learning, facilitation, processing, and healing based on your needs, context, and background. They are mindful and aware that we are impacted by anti Blackness, ableism, gender based oppression, capitalism, state sanctioned violence, and other forms of systemic injustice in every aspect of our lives, including our businesses, and thinks of pleasure, play, rest, and care as vessels for resistance. Oh my God, what an amazing bio.
Thank you.
I'm just like every single word is just like, yes, that makes so much sense and resonates so deeply with me.
Yay.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally. So I would love to just know your pronouns and where you're joining us from.
My pronouns are my name, she, and they, and I am joining you from so-called Los Angeles.
And I always love to know folks' stories. What is the story that led you to become a wellness doula and trauma informed therapist? Or would you call yourself either of those things? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I I have a hard time like labeling myself as a therapist. I've made it a really like big thing to, for example, when I made my therapist Instagram, I made it a point to not call it like therapy with Umu
Hmm.
because I wanted to not have this like identity just be so intertwined with who I am.
Totally.
And so, therapizing is a thing that I do in my day job. Absolutely. I do that. It's really fun, it's really impactful. And the way that I came to it, I think it came to me
Hmm.
in a really interesting kind of way. I'm a person that kind of responds to what is presented to me in life. And so I would say the same thing happened with therapy. I was in a sophomore class with a professor that had some connections with the grad school at my school. And he kind of just brought up to me, "Do you know that there's a therapy program here?" And I said, "Oh, really?" And then I looked it up and then I applied.
Nice.
That's just literally how it happened. My undergrad was in child and family studies. And so I always like knew I was going to do some like people human being
Hmm.
related type thing, but I never actually like sat down and dreamt upon a star to be a therapist per se.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just really wanted to like do things and like, have fun and be with people. And I think I get to do all those types of things now with all the different jobs and roles and hats that I wear.
Yeah. Nice. And is doula part of that at all or no? Did I get that wrong?
Yes, so
Okay.
wellness doula is a name that I created for myself because I was like, I don't want to call myself a coach
Gotcha. Okay.
or consultant.
Yeah.
Yes, and so I came up with that name, but I am having some, like, identity issues with that name now too, so I'm like, I don't know if I'm a wellness doula anymore."
Gotcha. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I'm an Umu, and I'm spectacular.
Perfect. I love it. So one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you here today is because in Chinese medicine and other ancient healing modalities, one of the major factors that can influence the fertile environment in our body are boundaries, which is so endlessly fascinating to me. I talk about this a lot in my online program, Fertile, and when we talk about the earth element. And the earth element has a lot to do with boundaries and knowing where we end and where others begin and how that
Ooh.
impacts our fertility. Because when we're trying to conceive, we're actually bringing in other folks' DNA into our body. And so we don't want to have a reaction where we're hostile to that DNA. We want it to be a welcoming environment. And so in
Mhm.
order for that to happen, we actually have to have really clear boundaries on a cellular level of knowing
Mm.
I don't have to attack this foreign particle. It will be safe here because I know where I end and this foreign particle begins.
This is so cool. Okay.
Isn't that
I'm learning
interesting?
in real
Yeah.
time with y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, it's sort of that function of how autoimmune disorders can work, where it's like if there are not clear boundaries, you can overreact on, and just like everything's an enemy because there's no discernment between what is self and what is other, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I never, because I'm not, like, into I don't know, like, lots about fertility or
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
that's just, like, not my wheelhouse,
For sure.
but some of the things that you're saying are super connected to, like, some of the things that I might talk with clients about as it relates to chronic illness and chronic
Mm,
pain and chronic disease.
interesting.
And so I think that's really interesting to, like, hear it through this lens and in this form. It's really blowing my mind for sure.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I would love to know your thoughts too about like how that affects or how that relates to the work that you do too.
Yeah. So in the work that I do, like boundaries comes up all the time because we have
Mhm.
bodies, and so our bodies are containers for things,
Mhm.
experiences, sensations, and more. And our bodies, our soma, comes into contact with other somas all the time,
Mhm.
right? Be it other like human physical bodies, ecological bodies. There's so many different systems, ecosystems that exist in the world that we're in.
I love that.
So in my work, part of like people's experiences is this not having a relationship to the different parts of themselves and their sense of self, which makes
Mm,
it then difficult to have the words, verbal and nonverbal, to describe to others what your boundaries are,
interesting.
and makes it susceptible to like lots of different types of nervous system responses
Hmm.
based off of what people are doing and not doing, and based off of what you're perceiving to be a threat and not a threat.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's like you have to have a pretty strong sense of self in order to communicate your boundaries.
For sure, for sure,
Yeah.
or a minimally like a willingness to explore said sense of self and see
Mhm.
see what parts of us are existing, because not all of us are going to get to a point where it's like I know everything, so like I'm going to be able to describe all my boundaries to everyone at all times, but the
Right.
willingness to like be on the terrain, on the road of exploration, is the thing that will support a lifelong journey of this stuff.
Oh, interesting. I love that. I love that it's not static, that it's like
Mhm.
our boundaries and our sense of self are both constantly evolving and changing.
Constantly evolving and changing. Yeah, and I think, like, maybe I think and view things in that way because of, like, my queer identity. I don't think anyone is static,
Totally.
right? I don't think
Mhm.
that experiences are static. Even our, like, understanding of the same boundary will change over time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've experienced that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So what do you think a boundary is? Like what would be kind of your definition of a boundary and why I mean, we kind of talked about why they're important to our well-being, but anything more to say around that?
So I'm actually going to use 2 different people's definitions of boundaries that are not mine, because I
Okay.
think that these 2 boundary definitions are brilliant, and I don't have to add anything to it.
Nice. Yeah. I love
So
that.
the first definition of boundary, that has been, like, instrumental in shifting how I relate to this work, is that
Mhm.
boundaries are sweet, juicy promises to oneself.
Wow. I love that.
So who said that, you ask? A phenomenal wellness strategist. Her name is Mishara Winston.
Okay.
Mishara, I think it's maybe Mishara D. Winston on Instagram, but incredible.
Wow.
Sweet,
Wow.
juicy promises to myself, that means that no one's a part of it. No one else is a
Wow.
part of it. I'm just talking about me and
Right.
what I need and what's
Right.
going on.
Ugh, that's amazing. Yeah.
So that offers lots of clarity about like the things I'm choosing to say and the things that I'm calling boundaries, right?
Mm. What do you mean? Say more about that.
So like I have been talking a lot on my Instagram recently about the differences between boundaries and requests
Yes, I love this. Yeah.
and how they're just So different, but a lot of the times, there's this, blurred line experience as we're interacting with the 2. And so I'll
Mhm.
give an example
Mhm.
of what I'm talking about. A sweet, juicy promise to myself might be, "I'm no longer in the place where I'm picking up my phone after 8 p.m. because that's me time." A request sounds like, "Please don't call me after 8
Right.
because I'm talking to someone else." I'm making a request of someone else to change their behavior.
Mhm.
Versus the first thing where it was just a sweet, juicy promise to myself. I can choose to share that with others. "Hey, I'm no longer in a place where I'm picking up the phone at after 8 p.m. because it's me time."
Right.
That's a boundary. But
Right.
if I tell the person, "I don't want you to call me after 8," which is fine. I can make requests. Requests are yummy and delicious.
Mhm.
But that's a request.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so amazing. This was so life-changing to me to read your thoughts on these 2 subjects because it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where you lose your power with a boundary, is when you put it on the other person to change in order for your quote unquote boundary to be upheld.
Yeah, your boundary can be upheld in all different kinds of ways, right? And it there's, like, different power dynamics that might make it difficult to, maintain your relationship to said juicy promise, the boundary.
Mhm.
However, boundaries are not things that you are going to be trying to make others do, make others see, make others understand, make others maneuver around. You can share it with others that you're co-creating relationships with.
Mhm.
And those that are like so about you and so about your love and so about your care are going to hear that and go, "Wow, I just got an update. That's nice."
Totally.
And
Totally.
move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can, like, let go of control of that other person too.
Oh my gosh, now that other person can just live their life the way
Mhm.
that they need to, and you get to shift how you're relating, how your body is responding to whatever's being presented to you.
Right. Right. Ugh, amazing. And you said were there 2 definitions? Was there another one?
Yeah,
Okay, what's the other one?
there's another one. So the second definition that I love, love, love is by Prentice Hemphill.
Oh, yes.
And Prentice Hemphill says that boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously.
Amazing.
What? So good.
So good.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. And so this shows yet again that this boundary stuff is about like not making others do things. It's not
Mhm.
about putting blocks up, right? Creating like distance.
Mhm.
It's about me sharing aspects of me, me sharing aspects of how I'm like looking to um create a world that feels yummy, nurturing, safe enough, all the words.
Mhm.
And I want you to be a part of it. And
Right.
so I'm gonna share what it means to be a part of that.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
That's it. That's all that's going on.
Yeah. And it's like an honor, it's like an invitation. It's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
this person wants me to be a part of their world that feels good to them."
And it's so cool that a person knows what their world looks like and is willing to tell you what it means to be a part of their world.
Totally.
That's a gift to everyone
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah. It's a total gift. Yeah. Amazing. Yes, I love those 2 definitions for sure.
So those have knocked my socks off for sure. My faves.
Yes.
I'm against every other boundary definition. I'm just kidding, but those 2 are
That's
my
totally
favorite.
That's it. Yeah, no more. I love it. You talk about bids for care. Do those relate to healthy boundaries? If
For
so,
sure,
yeah,
Zeus.
what do you think?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that bids for care have to relate to boundaries.
Mhm.
I also don't use healthy when I talk about boundaries because I think that like sometimes boundaries are like a little porous, maybe, or
Mhm.
sometimes boundaries are a little bit more firm. But I
Mhm.
think with like words like health and unhealthy, it creates this like negative or contributes, doesn't create, contributes to like negative stories we might have about ourselves when we don't do the thing right.
Right.
It's like, oh, I had a bad boundary. It's like, no, it just wasn't too clear to you or the other person.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Totally.
So bid for care. So bids for care are absolutely related to boundaries, and it's a framework, and a verbiage that I came up with when I created Radical Mental Health First Aid, because I noticed that there were lots of different moments where people were, how do I know, like, how do I say, trying to describe this thing that they were desiring for themselves or for others, but there wasn't really like languaging
Mm.
for what was going on. And so I'm like
Mhm.
listening, listening, listening. And I've gotten some like information in the past slash training about bids for connection, which are which is like a phrase that comes from John Gottman
Mhm.
and the work that he does with couples.
Totally.
And so bid for connection is actually what inspired the bid for care languaging.
Mhm.
And so those are really related. The bid for care is essentially a means of relationship building, and it can look like body doubling. It can, and it's actions that contribute to like your experience of care. And so that can
Mm.
look like body doubling. That can look like somebody making meals for you. It can look like honestly anything. And it is what I believe that's going to contribute to our liberation and our ability to like access care in ways that feel yummy, in ways that are co-created, and in ways that have lasting impacts on our lineage.
Wow. And what is body doubling?
Ah, body doubling. So body doubling is something that I learned from as it relates to like ADHD, where it's essentially having another body in the space, either virtually or physically.
Cool.
That
Yeah.
body, that human doesn't have to be doing anything with you, but they're kind of just like there. And the
Mhm.
thought is that having another human there helps to support the completion or even initiation of tasks.
Mhm.
Right? So I'm a person where like maybe like I might hate cleaning my room by myself, but if I have another person in the room, right, who's like maybe doing another task, I'm more apt to like initiate something. Maybe I'll put my
Right.
clothes away. Maybe I'll do this, right? And so that person doesn't even have to be helping me with the task, helping me with the care action. They're just there. Because
Mhm.
sometimes they can just feel really like disorienting and isolating to be doing life alone in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I've heard of that, a similar concept with grief, around grieving,
Mhm.
to be like that,
Mhm.
a way to manage or deal with grief could be to be with someone, each doing your own thing.
Yes, yes, it's like parallel play.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. That's so
Mhm,
cool.
mhm.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Oh, so boundaries.
Yeah.
So boundaries have to be a part of that because let's say I'm in a situation where I have a bid for care. I haven't been eating well this past week, and I'm like I'm probably gonna be like still struggling with whatever in this next week. I'd like for someone to support me with like making sure that food enters minimally my home, maximally my body.
Yeah.
And so I make a bid for care with like my friends and I call them up and I'm like, hey, I would love some support with like meals and or eating.
Mhm.
I make that bid for care. The person responds and says, totally.
Mm.
That person, though, in that totally has boundaries. They say, I will go grocery shopping for you. I can also order you food through Uber Eats or Grubhub, but
Mhm.
I'm not in a position to do cooking for others.
Mhm.
Boundary.
Okay. Yeah.
So that that person's capacity is honored, right? And like
Mhm.
what it is that they're able to navigate, do, whatever, and then the other person who made the bid for care can get their needs met in a way
Mhm.
that is responsive, in a way that honors like the request to begin with. So
Right.
everybody's care is being taken care of in that situation,
Amazing. Yeah.
and their boundaries are being honored.
Yeah. And so the difference between a request and a bid for care would
Oh
be
my gosh, no one's asked me that. So a difference between a request and a bid for care, I think bid for cares are more intentional
Mhm.
and are more rooted in like relationship.
Gotcha.
And more rooted in, let's say, like systems and like networks of things
Yeah.
versus requests where they can just be like off like one, what is it, the English word you say,
Like one-off,
off
a
one off.
one-off. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, yeah, and I love that, and I love that the bid for care is rooted in relationship, and, like, to me, it feels like creating that community and that stability and, like mutual, yeah, just mutual collaboration and
Exactly.
love and community and care. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're like a person that I have no relationship with on the street might make a request of me,
Right.
and maybe depending on, like, I don't know, the conversation we get into, the request might transform into a bid for care, but a person I'm in a relationship with or I'm intending to be in relationship with, we might spend more time having language and co-creating a situation,
Mhm.
and so that's a bid for care.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I love that. And I love how that invites the other person to then exercise boundaries. It's like this nice
Yeah.
yeah, this give and take and
Absolutely, and I think, like, with responding to people's bids for care, you also, as the responder, get to experience lots of healing if
Mhm.
it's done in a way where, like, your consent is being centered and honored,
Mhm.
and in a way where your boundaries are being honored. You get to have these, what is it called in therapy land? You get to have these reparative experiences. I think I'm using the wrong words, but that's what I'm gonna go with.
Okay.
Reparative experiences
Mm.
where, like, maybe in the past when you made an attempt to have boundaries, somebody shot them down and were
Right.
like, "You don't deserve that. I'm gonna be trumping all over everything that you're talking about."
Mhm.
But in this care relationship, you got to test out the boundaries, and the person was like, "Obviously, totally, yes. I
Right.
love this juicy promise you just made to yourself. For sure, I'm
Yeah.
down."
Yeah, that's so healing. Yeah.
Mhm, and that can be really healing, like, "Oh, wow. Okay, I can do this. I
Yeah.
deserve this."
Right, right, and I can see how just this whole dynamic can lead to, like, freeing everybody, like
Everyone involved. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that seems like the answer to, like yeah, for everyone to
Mhm,
be
everything.
yeah,
Totally.
exactly. So maybe we can brainstorm some like, ideas or examples, like, how folks can establish or strengthen healthy boundaries, but I'm not gonna say healthy, just boundaries. We won't
Mhm.
say healthy, in their lives or
Mhm.
relationships, and especially, like, in my mind, I'm thinking on their fertility journey, but just, which just means really day to day. I mean, because everyone's also living their lives while they're on their fertility journey.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So I'm actually gonna go and there's this, like, boundary sentence that I teach to
Oh,
people,
nice.
though I talk about how, boundaries, like, they come from within, and so though there's this, like, sentence structure I might be showing you, it's also like consider it a playground,
Okay,
right? When you're using words to try to describe to others what your juicy promises are and how you can love yourself and them simultaneously. And
cool,
so this is just an invitation to like play around with and transform into like ways that feels good for you
cool.
and
Love it.
sounds like you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only just now thought about sharing this thing, so now I have to pull it up. So this formula is from somebody on Instagram. Their name is Accountability Mapping.
Oh, yeah, I know them.
Love them.
Yes, love their work.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
totally.
So this is their boundary statement that I like such a fan of. It reads, I value blank and I need blank, so I will blank.
Amazing.
Sweet, juicy promise to yourself.
Yeah. Will you read it again? I love that.
Absolutely. I value blank and I need blank, so I will blank.
Ooh.
So that can be like, I value community and I need, um, no, I don't like that one. I value, I value self-care
Mhm,
and I need time to myself. So I will be blocking off
mhm.
a day this week to hang out with myself.
Nice. Yeah. Ugh, so simple. That structure is so beautifully simple and, like
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. It's funny, as you were reading it, I was thinking of an example in my head that relates to my wife, and then you got to the "I will" part, and I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh."
Oh, okay.
Like, that's the hard part, is
That's
like
the hard part.
No, I want her to do something.
You do something, please. And that is the difference, right? That's where I'm like, okay, so if you want somebody to do something as part of like your care needs, we'll just have
Got
to
it.
be honest and say, hey, I have a request of you.
Right. So that would be the bid for care
Uh-huh.
or or a
Or a
request.
request, exactly, depending on what it sounds like.
Okay, got it. Okay.
You're so funny.
I know. I was like, "No, I will not do anything."
You will.
I'm such an asshole.
No, listen, I mean, such an asshole. Like, you're just a person trying to get your needs met, and sometimes it's a little wonky.
Yeah, totally.
Whatever.
Oh my gosh. I love it. That's so funny. Okay, so that's it. That's how people can establish or strengthen or what's kind of I'm imagining almost like strengthening a boundary muscle.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And so strengthening that muscle is going to take time and it's going to take practice, right?
Mhm.
It's also going to take a specific kind of mind body connection.
Say more about that. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
So with boundaries, there is a kind of well, number one, this disconnection between the mind and the body is something that French philosopher Boo Boo Booty Hole Man Descartes came up with. And it
Mhm.
really has affected all of us in a negative way, right? Because the
Mm.
mind and the body are not separate.
Hmm. Right.
They are not separate. And
Right.
so people's belief that they are separate is part of why some people believe they can will themselves to do things.
Hmm. Interesting.
Why some people believe that like it's mind over body,
Right.
right?
Right.
That they can that and a lot of people also um somatically only sense things above their shoulder.
Mhm. Yes.
Everything else, I don't know what's going on. Because
Right.
that's how they've just learned to navigate the world. And
Mhm.
so the strengthening your mind body connection really looks like playing in your body in a
Mhm.
different kind of way, being aware of your body in the world in a different kind of way.
Mm.
Um, Somewhat like doing this practice of like scanning, like literally imagining a scanner from the top of your head down to your feet and
Mhm.
seeing what you're sensing, what you're noticing,
Mhm.
right? And so some people have a really are really in tune to this kind of stuff and some aren't. And so there isn't like a right or wrong way to have mind body connection, but it's really important to know that the mind body connection exists for all people.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah. And for me, as you say that, I'm like, I think I would have a hard time, or I do have a hard time finding the language of what I'm feeling because it's like I've
Yes.
learned to associate certain feelings with like, oh, anxiety,
Yes.
or that's sadness or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But it's not like I can't be like, or it takes more effort for me to be like,
You're not sensing it per se.
yeah, is it warmth or is it tingling or is it like what the actual
Exactly.
sensation is?
Exactly. So some people like um are able to like describe their boundaries through these sensation words
Oh,
because of
interesting.
their relationship to their mind body connection, right?
Hmm.
And so like I've done work with some folks where they're like, yeah, my boundaries with my what are they called, parents-in-laws, what are they called, is that what they're called,
Sure.
something like
Parent
that.
in law. Yeah.
Yeah, something in-laws.
Yeah.
My boundaries with my in-laws
Yeah.
feel
There you go.
a little rugged. I feel like leather spikes.
Hmm.
They're rough. They feel heavy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's how they're describing boundaries with this group of people. Where like they're like, my boundaries with my partner feels more like a really calm sea,
Hmm.
and I'm like, that feels different, and that feels important to like notice.
Right.
And then you ask, "How did you notice that?" Well, my body, when I'm with my in-laws, tenses up, my shoulders drop, everything
Right.
about my heart is protected so that I'm not
Mm-hmm.
harmed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that helps this person to understand that there's like this like prickly protection that they now have because they're trying to protect themselves from this group of people that they don't have that great of a relationship with.
Right. Oh, interesting. So it's almost like two phases of like feeling like what the boundary itself feels like.
Yes.
and then kind of interpreting that through the lens of your body. Okay.
Yep. And so boundaries are like it's a whole world, right? We have like
Mhm.
the boundaries that we can say to others, and they can sound like that boundary statement I brought up earlier, or we can like describe the feeling and the
Mm.
sensation of our boundary as well, which changes everything. And so again,
Right.
that's not necessarily the goal. Not all boundaries will sound like that. That's not
Mhm.
always necessary for the situation that you're in or like what's
Mhm.
going on. But it's
Mhm.
also pretty helpful to be able to be like, use your body as a guide for what
Mhm.
boundaries need to happen for you.
Right. And I'm imagining that would also take like, almost, depersonalize it if you're
Mhm,
trying to communicate a boundary by just saying instead of saying the boundary, you could say, "I feel this in my body when this
mhm.
happens," and it's
Yeah,
almost like you're just sharing that information.
yep. And that's like
Interesting.
a way of not like pointing blame at anyone, right? Not
Right,
you, not me. I'm just naming sensations that I'm noticing, and I wanna know
right,
what you think about that because I
right,
think we're in a relationship with one another and that you might care. Do you?
right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Tell me more. Do you care? Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally, that makes sense. So kind of in that vein, I'm thinking how this relates to pleasure, because I'm imagining like that seems like the next step or kind of a deeper level is I know you talk about, pleasure and play, which I absolutely love,
Yeah,
and both of those things are definitely, things that people, especially who are on a fertility journey, really lose touch with. Is the pleasure aspect of trying to conceive and the play aspect of anything. I mean, things get so focused and serious and medicalized so fast.
oh my gosh, and that's not always the best soil for things to grow.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So I would love to just talk more about kind of the importance or benefits of pleasure. Why is pleasure important? And if they're connected at all to boundaries, if either of those are connected at all, or
Yeah.
what your thoughts
So
are.
my thoughts, pleasure and play are things that were taught out of us as we
Mm,
grew.
yeah.
One of my biggest, like, I could probably do a multiple hour podcast on how upset I am that at some point when we're young people, we get recess taken away from us.
Totally. Totally.
I need
Yeah.
recess as a teenager for sure.
Yeah.
Like, uh, and so I bring up this like the school and education system is a part of why people's relationship to play is the way that it is.
Yes.
The prison industrial complex is a part of why people's relationship to play is the way that it is,
Mhm.
right?
Which is closely related to school.
Oh, they go hand in
They
hand.
go
They're
hand in hand.
besties.
They are besties. Yeah.
Those two are like systems that affect us from the moment that we're born forward.
Yeah.
And so with this like effect of these systems essentially telling us that work needs to be the center of our worlds and play
Mhm.
needs to be put not only on the back burner but maybe even be left for the children, and they only allow you to be a child for real until you're like in the second grade,
Totally. Totally.
maybe third.
Yep.
So with that kind of like mass teaching to people, it really teaches us a kind of disembodiment and a kind of disconnection to our ability to be creative, to this like
Mm.
part of our brain that really needs to be like turned on in this way so that we can think of ourselves, think of our relationships, think of our future
Mhm.
in ways that are imaginative, in ways that abolition calls for, right? It's really
Mm.
hard to think about abolition in those ways if we are being suppressed by these systems and
Yeah.
our body mind connection is being like shut off in all these different kinds of ways.
Right.
So play and pleasure, I think, are necessary for the body mind to thrive. I think that they are tools for survival.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they are necessary for development,
Mm-hmm.
teenage development, young adults, adults, older adults. Like, I'm talking about everyone
Yeah.
needs play, everyone needs pleasure. And something that I try to make mention of is that with pleasure, it does not have to be sexual pleasure only that's being regarded. Pleasure
Right.
is sexual and non sexual things.
Totally.
And so I have like different lists of things that you can play with and think about as it relates to creating a routine for yourself
Mm.
with either pleasure at the center or play at the center because we need it.
Yeah. Totally. I know. I was just thinking too, like we need that pleasure and that play in order to be in a creative state. So if that's like creating another human, you know, accessing that is so important.
It's so important if that's creating another human.
Yeah.
Word. Yeah, you're so right. There's so much creativity that goes into that. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and my oldest is in 5th grade, and yeah, he's just complaining that they used to have 2 recesses and they took away one of them, and now it's only 15 minutes.
Oh, I would be pissed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awful, and, like, he'll come home and want to, like, literally run around the block, get on his bike, get on the trampoline, get on we have a rowing machine, gets on the rowing machine. He just has, like, unbelievable amounts of energy to express.
Ah, 15 minutes? And I have to learn for the rest of the time this stinks.
Right.
And he's right. I'm with him.
Yeah, and also, like, the talk about, like, you know, f disconnect between body and mind. It's like everything's just focused on the mind and you just exist in your head for the whole day.
For the whole you just exist in your head for the whole day.
Yeah.
That's not good for
Yeah.
anyone. And
Mhm.
then, like, I could also talk about how you have to ask permission to use the bathroom, and sometimes
Yeah.
teachers say no.
Yeah.
And then you go, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna ignore my pee."
Yeah. Totally. I know.
Teaches you to not trust the sensations in your body, to not respond to your body's cues, and that has long-term negative implications on human beings.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, totally. And I also hear about this term a lot, the body mind in like disability justice world.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Part of the reason why anytime I talk about the body, I say body mind
Mhm.
specifically because of influences from the disability justice world, right? That is mainly where I have started to like do this discovering of the influence of Descartes and this like mind body separation and
Mhm.
how detrimental that is to all people, but especially disabled folks,
Yeah.
right? And so there is this honoring that I think I try to do when I make sure I say body mind.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. There's an episode that we did, I don't know, last year, I think at some point with Shada Kafai, who wrote
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, Crip Kinship is one of my favorite
Yes,
books. Yeah, so good. Yeah, and we talked about that
so
term,
good.
body mind, and yeah, how important that is. Um, yeah, and you've said that pleasure connects you to your body mind. So I
Absolutely.
think that, yeah.
It is something that I try to infuse in I think all sessions that I do with people, even the workshops that I do with people, even the podcast that I do with people, is
Mhm.
to ensure that like there's a pleasurable aspect of something happening in the moment so that I can be connected to my body mind, which will then
Mhm.
allow me to be present to the moment that I'm looking
Mm.
to like experience and
Mhm.
remember in a different kind of way. Even if it's not like mind remember, it's body remember.
Interesting. So what is the difference between play and pleasure? Is there a difference?
You know, I might use those two words and have different lists underneath those two words, But do I think that they're different? For real, for real? No, I think they're
Yeah.
super similar, like really
Yeah.
closely related. And what someone might call pleasure, someone else might say, like, oh, that's a playful thing for me. And I might go, that makes complete sense. I love it. Go off.
Right. Okay. Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think pleasure can be really playful. I think playing can
Mhm.
be really pleasurable.
Yeah. Like, one could be
Play is to pleasure as pleasure is to play.
yeah, totally. One could be like an entry point to the other and vice versa.
Yeah. Portals to one another. So
Yeah.
same coin, different sides.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. That's so cool. So what could a pleasure-focused or a play-focused routine look like? You talk about these routines. Yeah, and what are some benefits of having such a routine?
Oh, the benefits. So something I will say that at some point, someone on my Instagram, in the Instagram comments were like, "Routines are for privileged white people." And I was like,
Gotcha.
"Okay,
Yeah.
okay." So, whoa, all right, okay, got it. So I want to
Uh,
name that I can see why that person had lots of feelings about seeing the
for
word
sure.
because there's like historical things that come with people being able to have routines.
Yeah.
I want to name that like routine is just a word for like
Yeah.
a practice of doing things, maybe consistently or semi-consistently. Um,
Mhm.
and though maybe routines in the way that this person was like screaming about is something that was afforded to only some people. I think we all now in this day and age have different kinds of routines, even if it's like a routine gifted in quotes by capitalism.
Right, right.
It's still a
Totally.
routine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mhm.
So, pleasure and play focused routines, I think, are really like lists of invitations that I've created for people to support them in being creative and thinking about how they can incorporate play and pleasure into their everyday life versus
Mm.
leaving play and pleasure to be things to do and on the weekends.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I think I burnt out a couple of years ago is because I was a person that was only doing play and pleasure on the weekends. And
Mhm.
which usually meant I ended up not doing it because I had to do my errands, schedule appointments, go grocery shopping, like do all
Right.
of these life admin things, which ended up being more important than play and pleasure, right?
Mhm.
And so having these routines is a way of like ensuring that you are relating to these two words, to values, to ways of being in ways that are like centering them. And so
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
created these two different routines with different like ideas of what you can do um, in the day to day to incorporate play and pleasure. Because something that I was hearing was like, well, I don't have time to do this.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you don't need extra time to do this
Right.
at all. It can be the time that you're already doing things. You're just shifting the level
Mm.
of presence. You're shifting
Mm.
the intention, and maybe you're like sprinkling in a different energy of something or like a
Mm.
tool or an aspect, external thing.
Yeah.
And so for the pleasure focused routine, we have wake up, something for the soul or spirit, which can be literally anything, something for the brain, which can be anything. Spend some time outside, get some fresh air. I also have do nothing as part of the pleasure
Mm.
focused routine because I think that we don't always learn to associate nothingness with pleasure. And sometimes a lot
Mm.
of our lives is spent in the nothing zone.
Totally. Totally.
We have something to enhance your space, something for or with your community, something creative, something younger you would love, move your
Mm.
body, sleep. And so that is something that makes you feel alive or present, something for your
Mm.
heart, something that offers you nourishment. Literally anything could fit in this.
Yeah.
And depending on who you are.
And this one was the pleasure one
Yeah, this is
or
the
the
pleasure
play
one.
one? The pleasure one. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Totally.
And then we have the play one, which I really, really like. So for
Yeah.
play, we have wake up, play with something that centers your senses, play with other people or beings, Play with things that let you get messy or dirty. Experiment with your play. Play a game with rules. Play a game with no rules. Watch someone else play. Direct someone else's play consensually. Play a game
Mm-hmm.
that feels silly to play, and then sleep.
Mm, nice. And you could do just one of those
Just
in a
one of
day.
them.
Okay.
And you don't even have to do every single one of them. You can just choose to do one of the things on the list.
Yeah.
Maybe the
Yeah.
aspiration is to get to a point where, like, you have the time freedom to have a day that looks like this because not everyone has that kind of time, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Um, but I think these are suggestions, invitations, portals for how you could structure parts of your day. So I work with like
Mhm.
some corporate America people that are burnt out and they're like, I'm tired, I'm working a lot, I never have time for play and pleasure. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we have to make time. So how can you make your shower more pleasurable? Because you have to shower
Mm,
every day. You're gonna be in there.
right. Right.
That's not extra time. How can we make your shower more pleasurable? And they're like, okay, I can listen to music or a podcast. Yes, you can.
Mhm.
Wow, that's cool. Maybe you can add some nice like scents as well. Like put a candle on while you're showering.
Yeah.
Now that's changed your whole shower experience.
Right. Right. Yeah, it can be so simple.
It can be so
Yeah.
simple. Yeah.
I love that. And where is can folks find those lists? I think I've seen them on your Instagram.
I have them on my
Okay.
Instagram. Yeah, and I try to post them like once a week.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So people can find them.
hmm
Nice. Good. Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I think that I'm really resistant to play. I'm so resistant to it. And I notice that especially around my kids because they want to play.
Of course.
Yeah, and I'm always just like, "Ugh, I don't, like, have the energy or
Yeah,
desire."
yeah, yeah.
But
And
maybe it's because it's not, like, my version of playing or what would feel like playing for me
it might
or
not be your version of play. A part of you, like not to get too therapist-y, but a part of you might be having some like um thing from the past or like a childhood wound or something popping up with having to sit and play with your kids in this way. Like what it
Mm,
means to be doing this and maybe like stories about not being able to access this version of this thing and so your body's
yeah,
like having a reaction. It could be anything.
totally. I mean, I was an only child. I still am an only child.
Like still only.
That has yeah, that hasn't changed. But, like so I didn't do a lot of like, playing was by myself
Uh-huh.
or with adults,
Yeah.
another adult or my mom's friends or, so it was like, yeah, play is really I have 2 kids and they play together and I'm always like, "Wow, what a different
Wow.
childhood."
It's so different. Yeah, they're like interacting, making
Yes.
noises,
Yeah.
co-creating.
Yeah. I'll never forget when they were, really young. Let's see, I think my youngest was just walking, so maybe a year, and my oldest, they're 2 years apart, and, they were spitting in each other's faces over and over and just laughing so hard.
Yo, that is so nasty. That's hilarious.
And I was just, like, shocked and kind of grossed out and also, like, fascinated and laughing, and they were just loving it, and it's, like, one of my favorite memories of them.
Me and my little brother used to have like burp competitions when we were younger. Just like drinking beverages and then trying to see how loud we can burp because it was
Yeah.
fun and silly. Heck
Yeah,
yes, indeed.
totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're constantly making up games and, like, things to do
Yeah.
together and just yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. And so I think that even gives me then maybe more of a glimpse in that maybe that part of your brain hasn't always had time to be on,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so there's like a maybe like an initiation thing, like kind of putting the key in the ignition, like it's like
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we just gotta give it some time so it can turn on.
Totally, totally. It's so rusty. It's so old and rusty.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just needs a little bit of time and paying attention.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Because you can learn to play at any age. Some people are like, I haven't played my whole life. I'm like, "Well, you can start today, right now,
Right.
even if you haven't played your whole life, like, and that whole life can be 50 years."
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, 50 starting to play at 50 is not that
Yeah.
bad,
Yeah.
honestly. Like, 50 is young
Yeah.
to start to play, truly.
Totally. Yeah, I feel that. I'm 44 and I feel like I'm just, now kind of revisiting that and loosening up around that because it's just been, yeah, really latent or not developed at all
Mhm,
my whole
mhm,
life.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. So, how can people find you and support you and buy all your things?
Yay. So people can find me on Instagram at Connect with Umu, ConnectWithOumou. My website name is also the same, www.connectwithumu.com. I also have a newsletter that I haven't actually interacted with since its creation. You can follow me
You
there.
never
I might be
know.
doing something on it soon. You never know. I might pop up with it. I might pop up on there again
Yeah.
soon. Yeah, I went and saw how many subscribers I have. I was like, "Yo, this is a lot.
Use that. You
This is
should
a
be using
lot.
that.
I need to use it. I should use it. I should use it." So I have a newsletter. Definitely sign up for that. I will use it again someday.
Nice.
Um, what else? I might be doing a podcast of my own someday, so, like, maybe look out for that. Yeah, and I do a series of workshops every month, that I'll be doing for the foreseeable future because it's my jam. Radical mental health first aid. I have, like, 4 different versions that I do, and I can also offer this to your school, your workplace, your organization, your family, whomever.
Yeah.
Hit me up.
Dude, that was your course blew my mind. I was so permanently changed after taking your
Oh my
course.
gosh!
Yeah. It was like I felt like I had been looking for something like that and it does not exist. I mean, not that I have found. Yeah.
I don't think it exists either, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. I think that's why the impact is it's going the way that it is
Mhm.
because it doesn't exist, and, like, I'm not looking to exploit people for this to exist. Like, the pay scale for this thing is so nice
Totally.
and so lovely. I've even bartered with people. I'm like, "Don't give me dollars. You wanna send me some art? I'll literally take your art."
Amazing. Yeah.
So, show up, it's really cool, it's
Yeah.
really fun, and I'm not the only person that shares, which I find really great too.
Mhm.
There's lots of wisdom that's offered
Oh my
via the
gosh.
participants.
I know. That was actually one of my favorite parts of the, is it a workshop or a course? What is the word? Just
You know, workshop, course,
okay,
training, I
training.
use those interchangeably,
Yeah.
yeah,
That was one of my favorite parts was just, like, everyone's contribution, and the participants there were incredible. I mean, just other
yeah.
folks who signed up, and I was just, like, learning so much from, just the chat. Like, people
Yep, just the
yeah.
chat.
It was amazing. I'm, like, getting goosebumps right now
Oh,
thinking about
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really, really it's really good, and I am gonna toot my own horn. Toot, toot, it's really good.
Yes. Toot it. Toot it.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's me, that's what I'm doing.
Nice.
Follow me on those things. I have a website. Yeah, and I'm really happy to have been able to talk with you about all the things today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I know people are gonna just learn so much. This is gonna be so amazing for folks to listen to. Yeah.
Yay! Oh, I'm glad you're able to do it.
Awesome.